If you've ever signed a petition regarding animal cruelty or social injustice, then you've probably signed a petition from Lady Freethinker. Joining me now is Nina Jackal, President from Lady Freethinker. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. I've signed a number of petitions on your site, and it's a really great cause. I wanted to know, why did you come up with, and how did you come up with Lady Freethinker?
Well, I was working as a journalist, a freelance journalist, but I was an animal activist at heart, and I wanted to use my words and my skills to advocate for animals in some way. And so it actually started out as a blog. It was just my personal blog. And then it sort of evolved, and over the years we became a registered nonprofit organization, and now there's a team of writers and editors, and it's grown into something much bigger than a blog, obviously. And so, but the mission is still the same, just to try and use words and education to create a better world for animals.
So you have a blog and you have the petitions.
Well, they're on the same website. At first, we were only writing articles. And then after a while of just writing articles, I realized that I wanted to do more than just educate and actually give people an action that they could take online, a simple action. And a petition is a great way to do that. It's like having a protest online, and by signing your name, you're attending that virtual protest. So we started doing that about 3 years ago. We started doing the petitions, and they actually quickly became the most popular part of the site, because when people see what's happening to animals and they read about injustice, they want to do something about it. And so they want to add their name and sign the petition. And it's actually turned into a very powerful tool that helps people make an impact from wherever they are.
So how did you come up with the name Lady Freethinker?
Well, it has a personal meaning for me, because I really wanted to create something that was about evolving as a society to a more compassionate future, which to me means thinking freely, thinking beyond the norms of today. And it's, in a more general sense, it's about freeing your mind to be a better human being.
Yeah, and it's making a great impact on animal rights and social injustices and advocacy. How do you promote veganism?
Well, we promote compassion toward all animals, and by default, that means that you don't abuse animals for food. Mm-hmm. And we used to live in a world where you had to survive, you would have to eat animals. Hundreds of years ago, there was no such thing as a vegan, because you wouldn't survive. But we don't live in those times anymore. And with compassionate plant-based options, we just don't have to cram animals into factory-like conditions and use them as commodities and torture them for their entire lives just so that we have food to eat, because there's just so much more. So that's why I promote veganism. That's why Lady Freethinker tries to educate people as much as possible on the realities of factory farming and the positives of adopting a plant-based diet instead.
And I remember when the whole Yulin thing came out, there were so many petitions coming out, and you have so many petitions in the past about that. Mm-hmm. How's that going?
Well, the dog and cat meat trade in China is one of our main issues. Mm-hmm. And I think the Yulin Dog Meat Festival is what sort of awakened people to that issue, because imagine having a festival just about killing dogs and eating them. It's a horrible thing. And so that woke people up to the problem. And so there have been a lot of petitions. We actually work directly with rescuers in China who are saving dogs and cats, because they also kill cats, from not just from the Yulin dog meat trade, but from all over China, because the reality is that 10 million dogs and about 4 million cats are killed each year. Each year. And with no animal cruelty laws, they're tortured. They might be beaten, boiled alive, killed in the most horrible ways. And by educating people on what's happening, we're helping to save those dogs and actually get them away from the butchers. And
it's a good topic, because it kind of makes people make that connection. Like, it's a dog for you, but in China, for example, they see it as how most people here would see like a pig, mm-hmm. or a cow. So it's like, if you want to protect dogs and cats, then why, maybe you want to consider protecting the rest of the animals, right?
Exactly. I always say that dogs are the gateway animal.
Yes.
Because once people see, and it breaks their heart when you see this happening to a dog, and then you show them footage of a pig in a factory farm right in the US or in Canada or in Mexico or in the EU, And these horrible things are happening to animals all over the world, farmed animals. And,
Yeah.
and the best letter that I ever get from a reader is one that says, because of what I read about the dog meat trade, I stopped eating meat.
That's it.
And it happens. It actually happens a lot, and I love it. I love seeing
Yes,
that.
it's when people start to make that connection. Just like when I went vegan, for me, what happened was I watched something with, a calf being dragged by its leg away from its mother, and then I mean, for me, I was like, it's like my milk if I want to give to my baby, and I made that connection right there. So it's very important to have these kinds of, discussions. What can people do in their community to make a difference?
Read about what's happening, obviously signing petitions, physically going to protests, backing laws and bills that are in your city can make a tremendous difference. Go to city council meetings, advocate for bills that protect animals. And obviously choose plant-based foods. That's one of the best things you can do, and tell others why you're doing it and encourage them to do the same thing.
I heard somebody one time tell me, oh, it makes no difference, it doesn't make a difference at all to sign a petition, it's not really doing anything. But I disagree. I believe petitions are really strong. They can really make a big difference. And when people get involved, what do you think of?
They absolutely do. They absolutely do. In some cases, you'll see a direct victory. Like there was one instance when one of our petitions directly shut down a school possum hunt where little children were encouraged to go out and kill possums.
I heard
and
about
rewarded
that.
for that. Yeah, and it was very clear that because of our petition, that ended. Other times, it's not quite as clear. But what you're doing is you're educating the public on that issue. And when you raise that issue and spread awareness, then ultimately you end up taking a big step towards stopping it. So I think it's extremely important because people share the petition, they sign it, it sends a clear message that the public is not willing to tolerate this, and it makes policymakers think about that and ultimately do something about it in many, many cases.
How did you get into this? What made you start this, or your own lifestyle? Like, how was it growing up? Were you vegan growing up, or how did it happen?
Well, I became vegetarian when I was 12 because of my little dog Peggy, and she was my best friend. And I really remember one day at the age of 12 when I looked into her eyes and just saw so much depth and thought and feeling. And I just thought that I would never want to see hurt in those eyes. I wouldn't want to see her hurt. And then I started extending that to other animals, and I thought if I wouldn't want to see Peggy hurt, I think a cow would also have the same feeling and the same depth, and it actually made me feel physically ill to think of another animal being harmed, and I just realized that I didn't want to hurt animals. I didn't want bad things to happen to animals. And when you eat an animal, obviously an animal died for that meal. And so that was when I stopped eating animals that day. Vegan took longer because I didn't really know all of the cruelty involved. It was later when I started working at an animal advocacy organization that I learned that the dairy industry is cruel, that the hens at the egg farms are kept in those little cages and just wallowing in filth. And I learned what other animals endure. Even if they're not killed immediately for food, they endure great suffering when they're bred in these factory conditions and used as products to create food for us.
You know what? It's thanks to social media right now, because that's what opens a lot of people's eyes. And I just went vegan 6 years ago. I watched something on Netflix, and that's how I went vegan. Had I not seen that, or not seen social media posts about animal cruelty, how else would I know? I mean, we're born compassionate, and I believe we're raised a certain way. Our parents teach us after, a certain way to eat, and we didn't question it growing up. But I think everyone is already born compassionate, like children, like you said with you.
I believe we will be. I absolutely believe
one day. I believe so too. Thank you so much for coming, Nina.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be back for more.